Did you stay there to work?
Oh, I'm just sitting here and
Okay,
I'm not really sure what
at 10:34, meeting of the ordinance review committee is called to order. Joe, do you mind taking the roll?
James Miller,
Here.
Joe Bronco here, Karen Duncan,
I'm here.
Robert Tinsman here. And then we have 4 vacancies, right?
Yeah. Okay, for public comments, we need the consent calendar. I need a motion to approve the consent calendar, which is the regular meeting from November 7th. If anyone wants to take the time to read it a little bit. The only mistake in there is, which wasn't a mistake, it was what got done. Your term on the website was listed as ending
Right.
last December. And so I operated on that basis, but that's what I had. And so in the minutes, it states that your term ended, but that was incorrect.
When does it, next December?
Never.
Never, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in
Oh,
the workshop, but it expires this December.
Gotcha, okay. So they're just a mistake on the earth.
So I need a motion, I'll go ahead and make a motion, to accept the minutes of November 7th. Okay, now you call it, which you do,
November this, for right here.
November 7th,
So,
minute. Item number 1. That's okay.
there we go.
Okay, now what you do is you query the committee by calling each member and asking for their vote.
Okay, so James Miller,
Aye.
Joe Bronco, aye. Where do I write this, right here?
Yeah, you check the aye. Is there a,
Just says item number, it doesn't. I think
this is her form, not mine. Oh, it would be, I'm sorry. It has to be that.
No, just all the same.
Go ahead and use side forms.
James Miller, yay. Joe Bronco, yay. Karen Duncan.
Yes.
And Robert Tinsman.
Perhaps I should abstain since I didn't have any knowledge of that meeting.
You can vote for it, or it is,
Well, I'll vote for
there you
it, okay?
And,
I wasn't there either, but I read the notes.
but to be clear, an abstention is actually a yes vote.
Yeah.
That's how it counts.
Okay.
If if you're on a scale tipping it, it counts as a yes, but it is okay to also abstain whenever.
go. We know you're not doing anything nefarious. So.
At what time was that vote? 10:37.
Yeah. In my force, man.
Oh, you made this one? It's quite good.
Okay, so it passes, so we move on. Report from council liaison.
Well,
What you got to tell us?
there's not much new to report except for what you're already gonna be talking about in your workshop, the changes to chapter 30 that were made.
Right.
So we can just discuss it at that time. Y'all didn't meet for a period of time, and so your last pending item from November 7th, I verified that I'm gonna work with the city manager and we're gonna get it on, this coming February agenda for council to discuss and consider. And that was about your, the meeting in front of you, actually, your minutes. It was about the traffic code, chapter 70 discussion and, the invisible and electric fences report.
Okay, one of the things that was discussed at the, training meeting last week, which I thought was a good point, was if you feel you want someone from ORC to be present at your council workshop, if you have any questions, for example, on the whole parking issue, I think Ms. Duncan would probably be a great one to have if you have any questions about the mini RVs and et cetera. And
Oh, that's right. I didn't even, honestly, I didn't remember what these were about, but now I remember clearly.
so, and I'm perfectly willing to attend if you have any questions. And like I explained to you before, as long as it's before, we're not criticizing anything staff or legal has done. We're quite happy to engage if you need us, okay? Anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, and no staff report? Okay, at 10:40, I am opening the workshop.
Right here, for this.
Yeah.
No.
Well, no, now you're back on her show. Sorry,
No, it's okay.
yeah, here it is. You put item number
Oh, okay.
1, and we open it at 10:40.
It doesn't judge right that next to number 1, because it doesn't have space for the time. Just right up here or something,
Yeah,
10:40,
yeah. The funny thing is, she needs notes. I give her the minute. So for example, I keep the information and I'll type up all the minutes. It doesn't take 5 minutes. But she needs notes. So you're creating notes
Okay,
that she needs
so
down.
should I make those on here?
No, you're fine. That's it. She doesn't. That's fine. Okay, so, we're opening up a workshop to discuss the changes on ordinance chapter 30. Now, what we do is defined in chapter 30, the ORC, committee. What we uncovered is I was adhering to the letter of the ordinance. And so in December, we lost a number of members. And at the time, I thought we were losing Joe. So we no longer had a quorum. So I canceled December and ultimately January meetings because I felt we didn't have a quorum. In the course of discussions, it was uncovered that Joe wasn't terminating at December, that he was on for another year. But it did highlight the fact that the committees lose members in December. They are not replaced until January or February at the earliest. And in the meantime, the committees are kind of like in a quagmire. So what they did is they changed the wording. Now, the wording says that I have the ability now to ask a member to stay on until he's replaced, he or she is replaced. So if I had known that, I would have approached Randy and at the time Joe and asked them, just sit tight for a month or two, okay? So that we can get replacements in. So they've now changed the wording, so that would happen. They also have the fact that the chairman and vice chairman, we only keep our positions for 1 year. And that needs to be voted on, by the committee. So the full committee won't be seated until, we now have, in effect, a full committee. We're 1 member short, but we have enough to regularly meet. Next month, we will have on the agenda, elections. And that makes sense because the committee is going to change every year. We're going to lose members and get new members. So then they should have the right to elect the chairman that they want. Other than that, I don't recall any other changes. Do you, Deborah?
Well, technically, the ordinance hasn't passed yet. What council did was we approved all the changes and it will go to legal. Legal will put it in the appropriate format. And then it will come back to council for that second viewing. It's called the second reading. Typically, it would then pass unless there are any additional changes. We don't anticipate any additional changes. The only other major edit concerning the way this body functions is that the authority to take up topics on your own was provided for.
Well, that was in the original ordinance. That's not a change. What happened is that the council made a statement that we shouldn't be doing that, but they didn't change the ordinance. So
The wording is now adopted so that it is open for you all to take up topics as you see fit. The only adjustment is if council has asked you to review something that would take precedence.
Yeah, again, we're arguing over a viewpoint. That was the wording all along. That hasn't changed. In other words, the fact that we were an independent body was in the original wording. And what we were operating under was the inference of the council to not take up, and the issue of zoning is the same thing. That's technically not in the original wording. So the fact that we stay away from zoning and that we did not take up something on an independent basis was we were adhering to the attitude of the council, but not the letter of the ordinance.
The wording is clean up now.
Can I, and I realize y'all have already talked about this, but I found it very bizarre that when I was appointed by a council person whose term was not reelected, and so my term ended after like 3 months or 2 months, then I was appointed by a different council member, which drags me over 2 years that I may or may not have agreed to. And then at the end of the first year of the second appointment, I got an email saying I had to reapply even though I had been appointed for 2 years.
I apologize, that was an error on staff's behalf. I
I
can't,
argued with her politely on email. I have an extra year.
and they made a mistake. There was an overreaction to wanting complete paperwork, and it was not conveyed properly.
Okay.
The request was actually just to have all new applications on file.
That's why they should go through the chairs on these committees.
I do not
If they need-
disagree.
If they need additional paperwork, go through the chairs. We would have worked it out, got everything settled, not a problem. But going direct to committee members causes confusion, and it's confusion that I can't necessarily help, because
No.
I wasn't even aware of it.
So we don't need to fill out another application, because I got one in that email yesterday. I mean, I don't mind filling it out, I tried to print it, and my printer's out of ink right now, so.
Well, I just filled out one, so.
So
I mean, I don't mind keeping it up to date. Perhaps my email address changed, I don't know. I don't mind annually confirming my information. I did mind not knowing that my first appointment was only 3 months. That was annoying,
Well, Karen, you don't want to leave us, do you?
but I might, well, since I committed to 2 years, when I was I guess the person assumed they would be reelected.
That's always the hope, but, also you are always welcome to resign as needed. That's not, you
No,
know,
it was just weird.
yeah, I don't.
And
disagree.
especially there, I don't know, the whole thing seemed a little lumpy.
Yes, so
And I
Things
can
are going
understand.
on. One, we created new committees and it was a learning experience. And so that road is always a little bumpy. Two, we have a staff member who likes clean and organized files. And sometimes that desire can override practicality of the application from last year is still relevant. So I apologize.
It's okay, I did
You
not,
all are cleanly appointed and, if you don't mind, when you leave here, you could fill out the application again. You know, she had the paper copy, then her records are complete and fresh and whatever was driving that ship will have been in the past.
well, I filled that out like in November or December, whenever, I don't know, I reapplied, I filled it out, so I need to fill it out again?
I do not believe that you need to do it again.
Was it this form?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the problem was, because like my original application was under the old form. So I think they changed forms.
oh, maybe,
They
I don't
wanted us
know.
to go on.
Whenever I was emailed in November or December, or maybe I pulled it off the website in November or December after the election.
We do have to understand that we're operating
It's okay.
within
It's an
government.
opportunity
bureaucracy.
to improve processes. It is an opportunity for improvement. And to look a little bit more together.
But you are not held captive here. just
I
because
know,
of,
it's just the whole, and I can understand from the council members' point of view that they want their own appointees. But when you go out to the community and you say, this is a 2-year appointment and it's a 3-month appointment, that doesn't make any sense.
The whole system,
Makes no sense.
right, it doesn't. You know,
Well, I think it's like the
I'm
White
tying
House
us-
though, if
I'm
you,
tying us to specific council members. For example, the blank, the current member deficiency we have is tied to a specific council
right,
member
exactly.
who I've sent an email, I've not gotten a response. So that council member, to my knowledge, has not put up anyone to replace that. So we almost can't depend on an individual council member to fill a vacancy or fill a
Let
spot.
me be clear, applications can be submitted by anyone at any time.
We know that, but
And
the system assumes or pretends
In the
that
event
it's
that,
going to.
in the event that a council member fails to fulfill the duty, the entire council can appoint someone. At this point in time, we lack applications for the position, period, full stop. That's the real problem. So if you know people interested in getting more involved with the city and having input on ordinances, please direct them to fill out an application.
Would it be helpful to have the council, broadcast or publish the vacancies? In other words, list the committees and show vacancies.
We have made individual applications online, but the city put out an email, what was that? Maybe early November of last year, putting out a general call. So we have put out general calls for
What
applicants.
about on the Facebook page, on the Woodridge?
It would be relevant. We're both, I think he's also making notes, so it just needs to happen again.
When I was on the Parks Board several years ago, there were a few people that were, few real young people, Rowan, Abby, they were both on the Parks Board with me.
Yeah.
Can we appeal to like the young and future?
As long as they're 18 and over.
Oh, they have to be over 18.
Well,
Well, we had, Abby and Rowan were not senior members, they weren't full members of the committee.
Oh.
But it was a nice touch.
Yeah.
They
So
were,
maybe some 18, 19, or somebody that can represent a,
and show up.
a voting age would be relevant.
right, the younger generation for, future, maybe, I don't know, maybe appeal to that person that wants to like.
I can get a list of or create a list of the current vacancies. Get that word out.
I think that would help a lot.
I think staff should be publishing it on a regular basis, like, once a month or so, and say we still have vacancies on these committees. And, I,
Especially on the Facebook page, cause
Yeah.
that's what most people, I mean, I don't even get emails from the city, I don't think, I mean, my wife does, but I don't. And, but I see all the updates on the Blue Creek page, Facebook.
yeah, and this whole business of linking it to specific council members is,
Well, it's really linked to the terms. It's not, I mean, the idea being that you have to set term limits and somebody has to appoint people. So previously, the system was a single person got to make all appointments. We collectively decided we didn't necessarily love that. So the alternative was, well, each person would then get an appointment, with the concept being, if it follows the election, then it likely follows the public's wishes as well, meaning I, as the representative, was elected, so therefore the person I appoint is likely in alignment with that same sort of viewpoint and goal.
right, it smacks of cronyism. That's
Well,
what it smacks
So
of.
I will, I mean, just, if I could weigh in, because I don't like it either. I mean, I was against it from the beginning, I'm still against it. It's great in a larger city where you've got geographical representation, where, you know, District 1 has a representative, District 2 has a representative. You know, that makes more sense. I just, in a city of our size, you know, I just don't think it makes as much sense, but it is what's on the books now, so it is what we have to do. And so we will continue to follow, that procedure until council, if and when council changes
Well,
it.
and here's where it really made no sense to me, is that appointed by it's approved by the council, which means it gets unlinked from that one person. If the council approves it, why is it not a 2-year term based on the date of approval? That's my question. Because the person doesn't actually make the appointment, council makes the appointment and approves it.
It's remained that way. So if your council member resigns and we have to appoint a new council member, we don't redo your appointment.
But if they don't win
But they don't
re-election,
win re-election.
If they don't win re-election, then it naturally is also the expiration of your term.
Oh.
In your event, you were filling the remainder of an unexpired term, and unfortunately, that was not properly conveyed to you in the moment. Somebody mistakenly told you you had a 2-year term to start, which was inaccurate. Your term in that first appointment was only ever 3 months.
I believe you, but once it gets to council and it's approved by the whole council, that person, to me, no longer is owned by the one council.
That's right, they are not. That is not the
But
case.
then if they're.
Not owned, but they're still connected.
Meaning it was their
They're-
appointment, it's the same, all it is, the only connection after appointment is the term. Meaning you and that council member's terms happen to also expire. If that council member is reelected, you will be the first person they reach out to and consider for reappointment, if you are willing. Otherwise, you may exit at your leisure, you're not actually tied to that person, you're tied to that term.
Okay. So then.
So if that person leaves council because they move out of the city, you're not automatically off the board. You still fill your term.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're not actually tied to that council member. That's a misconception in all of this. And the real problem we actually have has nothing to do with any of this.
Nobody
It's
wants.
a lack of applicants.
Yes.
The lack of applicants is the driving factor in any of this, because this seat, the person missing, is only missing because we have no applicants, not because that council member has failed their duty. They have been soliciting applications. We oftentimes get told yes without an application to follow, meaning somebody talks to their partner and decides, never mind, what sounded great at the playground 3 weeks ago is now a really bad idea. So, I mean, that's what we're running into. And that's respectable. I mean, this is volunteer commitment in the middle of the day, in the middle of working hours. You know, it is a big ask.
I disagree, I don't think it's a big ask, I mean, we've done a maximum, I think, of 2-hour meeting. That's 2 hours a month, once a month. And to be involved in city government, and maybe what you're directly working on doesn't seem very important, but you do have access to the whole inner workings of the city
Well,
government.
that's a good way to market it, really.
I tried, but
Well, I got the one phone call from a woman. Did she ever call you asking me about this committee?
I got some vague reference to someone was going to apply.
I'll call back.
But-
I'll call this person back. She asked me that the call be confidential, but then she said she might call you, so I will call her back.
Yeah, unfortunately, the procedure is they have to fill out an application to staff.
Well, she's smart enough to know that if she wanted to be on, she would probably have to take an action. She's very, very smart, so
But if she has any questions, tell her if she has any questions,
call you.
you can give her my phone
I
number.
will. I will.
I'll be glad to talk to her unofficially.
Okay, I will call her back. I almost called her yesterday and then I ran out of time just to find out when she was with it, so.
I'll ask a few people, I'll ask some friends in there, I'll ask a couple of my
I
neighbors.
mean, one of the biggest complaints we get in the city is always the ordinances.
Right,
So the minute somebody starts complaining to you, say, great, I would love for you to come help, you know? Or the minute somebody
Oh, I
says,
use that one.
I wish Wood Creek would,
And
Right.
see, this is the biggest gift of all for that person. If you really have a book, you can come on this committee and the committee will take up that ordinance and we'll look at it and we'll talk about it. And we may even make a recommendation to council.
lots of power.
Our job, like we talked about a few meetings ago, is really to make the ordinances in line with the wording, et cetera. We're not really making, well, we think, we're gonna come together as a group and say, okay, we think campers should be allowed, or, whatever.
But we do if we feel that there's a deficiency in the way the wording currently is presented, in her case for the mini RVs,
that was mine.
so RVs are not allowed
Right.
whatsoever. But then we said, but that was written, it was for the, the big RV.
What's a mini RV, a Sprinter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, there's spare vans all over.
Yeah, my
here,
neighbor just bought one. Yeah.
But
Is he
the
gonna park it?
It's in his driveway.
RV one or the van?
I mean, it looks like a van. I mean, it's just.
They are vans, there's
It's
spare
giant camp, but
vans.
inside it's got. like,
Okay,
stuff.
see there,
Yes,
he's
he
in my,
technically.
If he looked up the ordinances, he was telling me he was gonna buy it in front of him.
no, it's against the ordinance.
It is,
It
Yeah.
says RVs are not allowed to be
but
parked.
how does anybody know it's an RV?
That's the point. That was the entire discussion.
The only way you would know is if it has the awning on the outside,
It
otherwise.
doesn't have it on it, no.
See there, you don't know.
Or an
that's-
AC unit.
Yeah, it doesn't have any of that. Yeah, it just said inside is finished out with some stuff, but on the outside it looks like a van.
Well, that's why we brought it
And
up.
there's business vans all over this town that are exactly the same size, and
Right.
they're all Sprinter vans, they're all over this
So where do you
town.
keep your Sprinter? I know we're getting off topic.
I didn't get one because of the
Oh, you
ordinance.
wanted to get one, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to, but we spent all that money buying a condo in Ruidosa, but that was what,
Oh,
we looked at them, we went over to Seguin, they have all the little ones,
Yeah.
we went around and looked at them.
Is
and
that a
then-
condo that you're Airbnb out or you're?
No,
Oh.
we live in it in the
Oh,
summer.
oh, okay. Well, I'm sticking off topic. I'm a real estate.
I understand, yeah, we're gonna buy, they're fixing to ban, Airbnbs in our complex, so. But anyway, yeah, no, because of the ordinance,
Gotcha.
I had no idea how to fight the ordinance or.
Yeah, because I can see Sprinter vans, I don't know, going
That's-
on. I can see them being allowed, but we're going to some code campers, no. And then because then you got trailers, like my neighbor had a trailer, like a flatbed brush trailer or something, parked in his driveway for months. And I remember Suzanne, saying, oh yeah, we know about that, we gave him a citation or something, but it was still there. And because his trailer was there, all his cars were parked on his front lawn. And every time, which looks very, very, I don't wanna use it looks
To track.
trashy. And then every time they started their cars, their lights would glare right into our house. And it's like, you know, that trailer was gone, they'd be in the driveway, and now the trailer was gone, I don't know if they were forcing them or
Well,
what.
and I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, there's a business permit that for your Sprinter van that you can pay for. But if it's an RV, same van, same chassis, same.
But that's why this committee would be attracted
Yeah,
to someone who wanted to, go after it.
well, I'll see if I can get my neighbor Carl, and you know Carl, across the street from me, I'll see if I can get him to, he works from home, so he might be able to,
So tell him he's violating the ordinance.
What's his wife's name?
Leah.
Leah.
Yeah, well, he's not violating it because he doesn't have an air conditioner in the
Depends.
Oh.
Yeah, look up the definition of an
Well,
RV.
if he does come in a committee, make believe we didn't have this conversation.
Okay.
It's on camera now.
Carl's really cool. I would love if you could get him. I've
Yeah,
talked
he's
to him
a
a
cool
couple times trying to get him involved, and he did seem interested, but he has not taken action, so.
Yeah, he's just gotta be kind of cool, you know, yeah. Or Leah, maybe she'd be into this. I'll ask them both.
That would be surprising, but yeah.
Well, Bob coming on board is like perfect, because one of the big issues in the future is gonna be water. I mean, water, it's gonna be, you know, that's the real issue I see looming.
Are you a water guy? Mm-hmm.
Now the mayor, I was gonna talk about him when he's not here.
I can close my ears. La, 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 la.
The mayor had talked about a committee, a joint committee between planning and zoning and ordinance to tackle, what is it,
Rainwater collection?
rainwater collection.
Well, and other conservation, like purple
Right.
pipe and other conservation.
The committee was approved by council. It is going to need members to be
More of an ad hoc
signed on
task
to.
force.
Yeah,
What committee is this?
it's, I mean, I forget the name. It was essentially water.
Strike Force One.
Oh, wow. So I'd be into being on a committee like that.
Okay, great.
Talking about water and stuff, I'd have to talk to you more about the commitment before you.
Yeah, what we were,
nominate me or-
so we said we wanted to do it, and so, you know, I would leave it to the chairs of the committees to, you know, get with their groups and say, hey, I mean, you can't have a quorum, so, you know, really only two persons from any committee, you know, could serve,
Okay.
up to two. And then, we said, you know, bring
The
in,
first thing you should do, as a suggestion, is appoint a chair on that ad hoc committee, or not a chair, a person in charge to decide where, you know, how are you going to attack the problem? And then get with the chairs of like planning and zoning and myself and say what it is you're going to need, because, for example, I would then say, well, they're gonna need you to meet every week for a couple of hours, okay? So that should be known before someone volunteers for a committee as to how often you're going to meet and, you know.
I believe it's coming up in the February council agenda to, I think Councilmember Grummer was submitting an item, right, about, I'll double check with him.
yeah, double check.
About, so now the next step for council is to name the two council members. And once the two council members are named, then that process will.
They would in effect be the
Yes.
chair or
Yes.
the manager. Then they have to decide what kind of a commitment they want from members. And we need that in advance, because the last thing you want is someone to volunteer and then find out they're meeting twice a week, 2 hours at the shop, and they hadn't planned on that, so let's,
We don't say that, but it is something that, I intend to be involved with that group, either just showing up or, you know, by appointing myself. You know, I wanna let people who really, you know, have a stake in it, who really are, you know, like water warriors. They wanna, you know, they wanna be in that group. I don't wanna stand in their way.
yeah, it's funny because if you read, chapter 50, in the ordinances, about waterworks, and, about water in general, most of it seems to be involved with aqua as far as water purity and et cetera. And the only, if I recall, the only, uh, talking about capturing rain is in the definition of permeability. And it talks how it's the catchment portion of a rainwater collection is not considered impermeable cover.
But there's also ordinance that says that if you do have rainwater collection, you can apply, you know, some formula to say, okay, well, I captured this much water, so I get this, you know, leniency on my pervious cover, but there's no calculation.
Right, and
There's no formula to calculate.
and there's no description of the rainwater collection system.
And there's no,
What constitutes, because someone could create a big swimming pool, catchment,
Mhm.
for collection.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding that, if a gallon of water falls on the ground, then only a very small portion of it gets to the aquifer and can be then used for drinking purposes or whatever. But if you have rainwater collection, yeah, you could use it all, but you would also have to have some type of purification.
Well, that's what, I mean, that's basically what this group is looking at, is like, how do we, what can we require? And we're not sure, you know, what we can actually require, but we can incentivize, things like gray water, purple pipe, rainwater capture, harvesting, sharing. So there are some things that we can do, and we just need to focus on it.
Yeah, you can't, I don't think you can collect rainwater for drinking on an asphalt roof, I think it has to be metal.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You
I
can collect
collect
it-
rainwater for my garden.
Right.
It's out, I have mostly house roof, but
But yeah, the tar stuff leaches into the water, so it's not safe. You can't purify that out, but anyway, so y'all are working on item C? Is that where we're at right now?
keep us on track here. Great, I guess so, huh?
Sorry, I didn't know what you're there.
Ordinance 30,
Well, y'all covered A and B, just naturally, so.
yeah, so we went on to new business.
Right.
I didn't notate what time we moved.
I don't, the word,
You're still in the workshop.
We're still in the
yeah,
workshop.
we're just in the workshop, you don't have to, no, anything. And I didn't have them listed. This is just a discussion for various topics. So, water is something then we should probably stay away from if we're going to have an ad hoc committee that's going to be working on that. So that's probably not an issue. However, if anyone wants to, on their own, gather some information that they might want to, in preparation for participation on that ad hoc committee, that'd be fine. What about any other topics? Does anyone have suggestion about topics that they would like to get into? How about you, Bob?
Nothing comes to mind, Jim.
No ordinances piss you off?
No. Let me just ask, what is a good, where are the ordinances? Where do I find them so I can review them?
The easiest place is the website,
The city's website?
city's website. There's a box that says ordinances.
Okay.
Okay, and if you click on that, you get to and there's a search mechanism too.
Okay.
So if you want, something about animals, okay, you can put animals in the search and it will show you where in all the ordinances animals are mentioned. And you can kind of look around.
So it's right here is what he's talking about. This is the woodcreektx.gov.
Oh,
If you click code of ordinances, it takes you to what's currently published. However,
Show them the gavel.
yeah, you also need to click here because these are items that have been updated and sometimes the two are not in congruence yet. So that's what that gavel is, but if you go back to the homepage, there's our ordinances, there's everything right there. And when he talks about not going over zoning, zoning is under the direct purview of planning and zoning. A previous attorney recommended that the ordinance review committee not look at zoning as that was P and Z's job. We can continue to operate under that. assumption.
But that, I disagree with that assertion to an extent, because again, we're offering our opinions about specific things. We don't have to look at an entire ordinance. We can look at specific wording and question that. And that includes in zoning, okay? Because one of the things we also talked about at this training session last week is that there needs to be availability to other committees of what it is we do. So for example, planning and zoning, if they're going to, they even mentioned, the chairman mentioned, he would welcome ordinance bringing to his attention a problem in the zoning section if we feel it's an obvious problem. So we don't go in and rewrite ordinance or revise an entire chapter of zoning, although we did in the past. We don't going forward. However, we can attack specific items within zoning that we feel need to be addressed.
So I thought at one of the meetings, we looked at zoning, it may have been, and everything but the kitchen sink was in there. Many things that probably aren't part of zoning.
You're thinking of the other committee, but either way, that lawyer no longer works for the city, so you don't have to operate under that assumption. And it is possible that this committee would make, because again, all you are doing is making recommendations to council. Council can then do something with those recommendations. The only really legally binding topic in any of this is that if any changes are made to zoning, they have to go through a public hearing, and planning and zoning has to issue a report before a change can be made. That doesn't impact you at all. And that is not your job to manage. That is the city council's job to manage along with their attorney and the city manager. So I would not even worry about that kind of stuff. And again, because of the changes in your ordinance language that are pending, a lot of this discussion is mute because your ordinance is now opened up to allow you all to discuss things that you see fit to discuss.
So anyways, next month, we'll have the elections will be on the agenda, and we'll do some thinking as to what else we could be working on. And if you, I won't submit my agenda until the middle of the month. Our meeting next week is March 5th, which is a regular meeting, which is first Tuesday of every month.
At 10:30.
It's the first Tuesday of every month, so it'll be March 5th at 10:30 in the morning. Now, we can officially change our meeting dates and times or whatever. And that has to be done at a meeting that we all vote on. But for now, that's how it stands. That's why this meeting is considered a special meeting, because we changed the day of that.
So your first
First
Tuesday
Tuesday of every month,
at 10:30.
10:30, yeah.
Right, thanks.
Now, if we need to move this, our regular meeting time to like make it more attractive to the new members that we don't have yet, are there evening times available during the week, or are the evenings all?
We can do anything we want.
And is there a space in here during the week? I mean, this time is better for me usually, but I mean, like a new person, but like I'm saying, my neighbor, you know, he works at home, but I don't know how flexible it is to come out for 2 hour meeting once a month. So is there, do we know what the schedule is for this building?
We'd have to check with Suzanne
Okay.
on, but if you look at the calendar, you can pretty much guess. You click on the calendar on the website,
Mhm.
it has all the regular meetings. So you can just look it up and figure it out, but I don't think anyone else. meets.
Everyone pretty much meets the first and second week of the month,
Okay.
and most of the meetings are in the middle of the day.
Like there's a meeting, I think this
Right after
afternoon.
this, yeah.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of open, because there's only 5 advisory boards, so,
First come, first served.
yeah. So y'all have a lot of leeway, and if we ever need to pull staff in to confer, or if you want me to look up and confirm times, I can. I mean, it's pretty easy, so. I wouldn't worry about that.
all right, anybody have anything else? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close the workshop at 11:20.
Now, I write that over here, correct? Agenda item? Workshop?
Yeah, that's no, that's my, I. It's supposed to be on this form somehow.
This?
We need a member and an alternate.
2 alternates and a member. Alternates are
I've waited. I've got it.
important, but really the members,
So don't do
because they're
it.
voting, so.
Yeah, okay.
And the alternates are actually the mayor's appointment. So he's the appointee on those.
I get all the alternates.
Okay, anything else? Anybody announcements? Nothing else? I'm gonna go ahead and close the meeting at 11:21.
All right, thank y'all.
Because there was a lot of stuff about water in ad hoc.
Yes, so, well, right now, we have a plan to meet with the city attorney. I unfortunately got sick for several weeks, and then now Councilmember Grummer's out of town for a family emergency.
Oh,
So we're waiting for Councilmember Grummer to get back, and then we are going to travel to the lawyer's office in Austin to lay down some groundwork for moving forward with all of that, because it is a pretty hefty chunk of work. And, now that we have this code administrator who's actually having to enforce our codes, he has a lot of really great insight. So he has said he's willing to work with me. So basically, we're just kind of pulling in the last key players to sort of create the bundle and, the plan for how to move it through the channels.
if it were possible, it would be really nice if we have real agenda items for him to be present. And,
Who?
the code enforcer, I mean, we don't necessarily agree with him on things, but his perception.
Who is he?
His name
One
is
time,
Jim Burton.
Mhm.
and he came.
Who's in here again? Fairman.
Like any staff member, you all can request that they attend meetings. Obviously, if he has a scheduling conflict because he's not a full-time staff member, or he might be having to service a permit or whatever, but you can request staff to attend meetings at least.
Because, I mean, like, he didn't like the idea of changing the RV rule, which we didn't concur with. But his insight was that it was gonna be harder to enforce, so there was a little brainstorming around how not to make his job harder and yet still get more flexibility about RVs. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, that would be very useful.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, especially if you have, key items that you would ask him to attend for, just give him that
Right, and
advance notice.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, specifically on the RV topic, his point was essentially like, I can't go look in these vans. So there's no way for me to tell if that Sprinter van your neighbor has
Yeah.
is an RV or not, so please consider that with whatever you're putting into an ordinance
Yeah.
suggestion, because, you know, it's great to put things on the paper, but when it comes to being able to actually enforce it, there's real,
well, he also didn't think the length was relevant because it was gonna be, he's not gonna go measure them either, but we did come up with some ways to not make his job a whole lot. We need to do and be practical and realistic.
Well, most people, I think, are good citizens. And what we did put in there was that the RVs, are legal, the minimum